Hi, friends. A little gloomy today here in Colorado, so it feels like not enough light. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the weather that much. I would love to talk to you about estrogen dominance and how does it manifest in menopause and perimenopause. And the interesting and fascinating thing is that actually to reduce the symptoms of perimenopause, as in when I say symptoms, it's not to stop it because you shouldn't and you wouldn't, because perimenopause and menopause are the most natural progression of women's life and they're perfectly normal. The question is, how much do we want to suffer when going through that? So, as my good friend Dr. Anna Kebaka always says, suffering is optional when it comes to menopause and perimenopause. So one thing that I've realized is that when we manage symptoms of estrogen dominance, then we are better equipped to go into menopause and perimenopause, and we suffer a lot less. And so, which is really, that's my whole mission of really helping you to get through this with a lot of grace and fun and entering. And when I say fun, it's like, you know what I mean, right? It's just like with grace and with appreciation for entering the next chapter of your life. So someone is asking, can you have perimenopause age 34? Yeah. So, menopause and perimenopause are not defined by age. I mean, there are women who are surgically, for example, could enter menopause in the age of 34 because they had the uterus and ovaries removed, right? And there are some women who, age 45, and this often runs in their families, so it's kind of like a genetic thing, can enter perimenopause or menopause. So let's just define perimenopause first, just in case you're not familiar with it. And then let's talk about symptoms of estrogen dominance. Because a lot of times we think of, the confusing thing about estrogen dominance is that we think of estrogen dominance as in like you're dominant in estrogen, and at the same time, you are you are in perimenopause, menopause, your estrogen is dropping. So you go like, my estrogen is dropping, but yet this woman, Magdalena, keeps talking about estrogen dominance in menopause. It's like, how does that compute? And so it's completely possible. In fact, when you have estrogen dominance in menopause, in perimenopause, it's far more dangerous and problematic versus younger years. And the reason why I say that is because all your estrogenic cancers, which is breast cancer is the number 3 reason why women die, is because of estrogen dominance and DNA damage and inflammation, which hormones play a huge role in here. And so this is the reason why I'm really passionate about this topic. And, so let's talk a little bit about, like, how do you know if you enter perimenopause, right? And, so the first thing that starts happening, you might observe, is that a very natural progression is that your progesterone starts dropping. So your cycles become shorter, right? Instead of having like the usual 28 days, you might be suddenly experiencing like, now it's like my period comes every 26 days and then becomes 23 days. And instead of being 4 or 5 days, it suddenly becomes 3 days and then goes down to 2 days. Like, for example, my periods, I'm a classical person who's going through perimenopause, and my periods have gone from 4 days down to 2. And my cycles have become shorter. And then now they're kind of a little bit like, I don't get my periods for 3 months, and then it kind of comes. And so all of that is perfectly normal. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where the periods just stop, right? And so, because I know how to take care of myself, because I do this for a living, I've dedicated my life to doing this stuff. I know really well how to navigate the waters. And so my experience of perimenopause has been nothing but wonderful in terms of, there are times when I find myself having sleep problems, right? Then I go and address it and I pay a lot more attention to my sleep. But it's nothing like the hell that a lot of women would talk about. And you can experience the same perimenopause the way I'm going through it when you correct your diet, you do your sleep correctly, meaning you prioritize your sleep and you know how to address sleeplessness. So those are just, but so let me just finish off the symptoms of perimenopause. The other thing that starts happening is that because of progesterone dropping, a lot of women would have things like mid-cycle spotting, which means it's like you see brown discoloration on your panties during ovulation, very normal. And then you might also experience a lot of sleep problems. So a lot of women going into perimenopause just start experiencing, be like, oh dear, like I've always been such a great sleeper, and I've never had a problem falling asleep, and I'll wake up the next morning, no problem. And now I wake up in the middle of the night, or I have a problem falling asleep, right? So welcome to perimenopause. That's all I have got to say to you. And there's obviously things that you can do to correct it and improve it. And I think, that's part of the reason why I got the Aura ring, to help me really understand my sleep. And that has changed things drastically. So while I have all of you here, I just want to do a quick shout out of the fact that, in case you've missed it, in case you have not seen our post about it, we've just opened doors to Estrogen Reset program, which is a live program, 6-week program that starts on the 24th of this month. And we're going to run it for 6 weeks to really help you and guide you through overcoming estrogen dominance in the most natural ways possible, starting off with your diet, incorporating some herbs. You don't need to purchase anything, any shakes or proteins. All supplements are optional. If you want to support us, great. If you want to do supplements from somewhere else, it's great too. They are optional. Everything is optional, right? Like, it's up to you if you do things or not. But diet is really foundational. And we are running a promo, a super early bird special, where you get the pad for free, which helps you plan. We're gonna be helping you go through the elimination diet when we cut out the most inflammatory foods, and help you fill up meal plans for the week, including shopping lists based on the foods that you're going to be eating. The second thing you're going to be getting during the super early bird special is our kit with our cleanser, moisturizer, and serum, vitamin C serum travel kit in this organic bag. So that's yours. And so don't wait till the last minute, because the prices are going to go up, right? But anyway, I hope this is a program that I created after creating the book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, because a lot of women said that, I love your book, but I'm really bad at implementing this and I need guidance. I want to get some help, life support, and then accountability and things like that. So if you feel like it's a good time for you to do that, I want to welcome you to joining. And you just go to if you're on Instagram, just click on our bio in the link bio. And I think it's the first button on top, shows you Estrogen Reset Life. And if you are on Facebook or YouTube, Jen, who's here with me today, will post the link to the program so you can check it out. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about symptoms of estrogen dominance in perimenopause. And I just want to tell you, like, if you've entered the age 45 or so, and suddenly a lot of things are changing in your life, meaning, it's just like you feel like your body's kind of beginning to betray you, it's that kind of feeling, right? It's most likely your hormones, and it's most likely just, it's the big banner on top that says, welcome to perimenopause. So nothing to be terrified of. It's not like your body is betraying you per se. It's just that things need to be changed. We need to pay more attention to lowering inflammation, prioritize our sleep, surround ourselves with people who really are, are helpful, are really, are a support system to us, and not people who are toxic. And so that's really what we teach in that program as well. So let me read through symptoms of estrogen dominance in perimenopause and menopausal women. So it can start with cycle changes. Of course, when you're in menopause, that doesn't apply, but perimenopause, that applies. Cycle changes, so mid-cycle spotting. And a lot of women are experiencing actually heavy periods during this time. Scanty periods or highly irregular periods, right? So the irregular periods, that's me right now. Inflammatory, so hot flashes, a lot more allergies. When we did a special like a month ago about allergies, a lot of you have said that whenever you have allergies, you feel your estrogen dominance really kicks off, and vice versa. And so there's definitely a connection between those two. And autoimmune diseases, a lot of times autoimmune diseases actually start when we enter menopause, which is interesting correlation between, excess estrogen is actually can be inflammatory, right? So uterine changes, so fibroids, uterine polyps, a lot of women develop those as well. External changes, so hair loss, other than thyroid. So thyroid is, I would say, the number one reason where we lose hair in menopause and perimenopause, but estrogen dominance would be the second cause. Spider or varicose veins, bloating, puffiness, and water retention, like you just can't take your fingers off. It's hard to put shoes on. Stubborn butt and thigh fat and cellulite. Women who are estrogenic, we put on weight around our hips, right? That's how you can tell what kind of hormonal imbalance a woman has by looking at her shape. Women who are apple shaped, who store a lot of fat around their abdomen, tend to be more of having metabolic issues, so like high testosterone, high blood sugar balance. Melasma, brown skin pigmentation right above your hip, your lips, your can be around right above your eyebrows, on the sides here. And then, we go and bleach our faces and skin and seek procedures, and then it all comes back and it thins the skin, right? So, I'm a big proponent of addressing the root cause of the problem, which is, in this case, estrogen dominance. And then you can resolve melasma over time. I used to have a lot of melasma right above my lips here when I was on birth control. So estrogen, synthetic estrogen. Breast changes, fibrocystic breasts, breast cysts, enlarged, swollen, tender breasts. And then cognition and mood, that's a big one, you guys. So brain fog, I'm sure many of you experienced that. Suddenly an onset of depression, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, headaches or migraines, particularly before the period or during ovulation, and so menopause, obviously that doesn't apply, but when you're in perimenopause, you still have your periods, right? But suddenly headaches or migraines become really pronounced. Sleeping, so sleeping symptoms, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, reduced sleep, deep sleep. You would only know about deep sleep if you're using devices like I'm using the Oura Ring. There's other ones like Apple Watch or Fitbits, right? Digestion, so gallstone, gallbladder problems, gallbladder removal is all correlated. Sexuality and fertility, so low libido, hormonal changes, low thyroid function, high blood sugar levels, and insulin resistance can all happen. Cancers and nodules, so that category would have, because of estrogen dominance, estrogen receptor positive or progesterone receptor positive breast cancers, ovarian cancer, uterine, lung, thyroid cancers, as well as thyroid nodules. A lot of women find nodules on their thyroid. They don't know why that's happening. So I just want to let you know that estrogen dominance causes the growth of nodules. As you can see, it's a pretty long list. So that's women who are in menopause and perimenopause. Women who are still menstruating will, most of these symptoms apply as well. I would say a few other things will be like painful periods, PMS. You can add that to the list. And let's see, endometriosis. Endometriosis is typically a younger woman's issue of estrogen dominance. Let's see what else. Breast cysts, that can happen to both sides. Miscarriages in the first trimester, that's a very telling one. It's a type 1 form of estrogen dominance where there is the imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. Another one is PCOS. So PCOS and estrogen dominance are highly correlated. When you have PCOS, you have high testosterone. Testosterone then converts into estrogen. And the reason why women have high testosterone is because their blood sugar levels is high. That suppresses the sex hormone binding globulin. There's too much testosterone, therefore, floating around. And that then converts to estrogen, and then you estrogen dominant. So PCOS, and oftentimes women with PCOS also have also have estrogen dominance issues, right? So yeah, so you can see, isn't that surprising how long the list of symptoms is for estrogen dominance, right? And, that's one of our challenges of for me doing this work is that there's so many women who actually have it and don't even realize that we have it. And so, we lead our approach with a lot of education so that you really address this. So, I'm a firm believer that when you address estrogen dominance, that will allow you to sail through menopause, allow your perimenopause symptoms to be a lot easier and much more manageable. And that's really one of my missions in my life, is to be here to help you to sail through these phases of your life, and not to be, I think in our popular culture, sort of like women in that phase are a sort of source of a lot of jokes, right? And we almost like as if our prime years are over. In fact, I really don't agree with that. I actually think that our prime years are in our 40s and 50s, and for a lot of women, 60s and 70s, because a lot of creativity occurs. This is where we have really a lot of time for ourselves, where we don't have to worry about everybody else, where the kids are out of the house, where we are a lot more clear who we want in our relationships and who we don't. So so that's, those are just some of the, I think, beautiful things about entering perimenopause. So I want to just talk about two different types of estrogen dominance that can happen, so that you understand that piece, because it's quite important. And why is it so confusing that you can still have estrogen dominance even though you're low on estrogen during menopause, right? So type 1 estrogen dominance is when the estrogen to progesterone ratio is off, right? We want them to be balanced. And that's why one of my posts, if you follow us on social media, which I think many of you do, is I made a post there about, how, where was I going with this? Sorry, this is kind of funny, but you know what? I had the worst night's sleep last night. And I generally have been having an amazing sleep for the past few months. And last night I was experimenting with some new supplements, and that backfired big time. And so it's just kind of interesting to see how poor sleep, and it sounds like my brain is not so chop today. So so anyway, so what I posted was saying that if your doctor has put you on estradiol, then make sure you're also on progesterone. It's really interesting to see that how many women are not on progesterone while taking estradiol. And so it's really important to balance these two out and make sure, of course, and making sure that estradiol you put on is bioidentical and not synthetic. So type 2 estrogen dominant. So let me just finish the thought on type 1. In type 1, when you're in menopause, even though your estrogen is low, your progesterone tends to be even lower. And when that happens, you can still experience estrogen dominance because you still have hormones. You're still producing hormones. Many of you email us and say, help, I have no hormones. That's not particularly correct, because if you had no hormones, you wouldn't function. You wouldn't be even able to sit and type an email to us. But it's true that, of course, both of them drop. But the way they drop is that the ratio is off, even though both of them are low. And it is your job then to correct them. And let me just turn off my lovely hood. And so let's talk about type 2 estrogen dominance. In type 2, what we have happening is that your estrogen gets broken down it's get metabolized. It's, in simple terms, I just call it gets broken down in the liver and the gut into dirty estrogens and clean estrogens. And the dirty estrogens is where the problem is, right? Those are the estrogens that are causing all the symptoms, the long list of symptoms that I just read at the beginning of this video. The clean estrogens are the supportive, protective metabolites that protect the cell from DNA damage. They protect the cell from dirty estrogens from coming through. And so having, it is absolutely in your control to skew the balance and help support your body in a way that gets metabolized more towards clean estrogens and away from the dirty estrogens. And that can be done by supporting your liver and supporting your gut. So guess what? Part of the protocol in the estrogen reset program, which starts on the 24th, is to help you with the recipes. The recipes and the meal plans are already designed in a way They do all of that. They actually do 3 things. They help you support your liver. So it's like a very gentle liver detox. Number 2 is they help you restore your digestive health by doing the elimination diet and bringing a lot of foods that are gut healing. And number 3 is helping you balance your blood sugar levels. Super important. Those are the 3 things that I find that hormonal balance rests on, is when we have blood sugar levels that are balanced, really well functioning liver function. And number 3 is having good digestive health. So, so type 2, this is where we really want to do the work. The symptoms are slightly different. If you just follow us on social media, you can look at the symptoms of type 1 versus type 2 estrogen dominance. And can you have both? Absolutely, yes. You can have an imbalance of estrogen to progesterone and still take those estrogens and breaking them down in an unfavorable way. That can completely happen. Marie's asking, what if I had a hysterectomy, including the ovaries? So Marie, specify your question. Are you asking like whether the program is for you or what? Just what is the question here? You still need, so for women who have a hysterectomy, you're still producing estrogen. So the ovaries take over, the adrenals take over, and your body fat produces estrogen, estradiol, which is the more aggressive form of estrogen. So your body is still producing estrogens. It's just that you are inevitably in menopause, right? But that doesn't mean, that you don't have estrogen dominance. You can still have, like I explained in type 2, even though your estrogen is low, you're still breaking it down to clean and dirty estrogen. So these 2 types of estrogen dominance really, really help. We have a question here from Anj Levy, I think. Can the recipes be adjusted for a person with SIBO? Yeah, so definitely, you need to do that. We did not write those recipes based on specifically for SIBO, and I'm not sure which protocol you follow, whether it's the low FODMAPs. It's impossible to design a meal plan and recipes that fit everybody's needs, right? So the way the estrogen reset program is structured is that you have meal plans and recipes that are free of gluten. There's no gluten, dairy, soy, corn, eggs, and there is very little sugar in the recipes. They're wonderful dessert recipes, but we just do not use much sugar, and teach you also how to, to give you an example, you can make something taste really nice and sweet by reducing halving the sugar in the recipe and then adding monk fruit, which is a natural sweetener. It's not an artificial sweetener. It's not a sugar alcohol. And then that way you're masking the taste of monk fruit. I don't know about you, but like stevia and monk fruit, well, I don't like them. A lot of people don't like them. But when you are kind of like hiding them, they become, you can't taste them, and the recipe still tastes sweet. You you've just reduced half the sugar in a recipe. So those are just really some really clever little tips that I want to impart with you that really will stay with you for life. Okay, so let me just see what else. Let me see what else. So let me just tell you a little bit more. So we start on the 24th, and then we'll take questions. We start on the 24th. It runs for 6 weeks, and we're going to do live Q&As every week, except for 1 week, where Dr. Stephanie, who's our naturopathic doctor, who specializes in women's hormones, and I are going to be taking your questions. We're also going to give you guidance every week, kind of like, nudging you a little bit, giving you a little bit of encouragement, what to try this week. You have plenty of time to prepare. So when but I would suggest, first of all, come and join now so that you enjoy the discount of $50. So you only pay $147, and then you get these freebies. So like I said, you get the trouble kit, and you get the meal plan with a magnet. So you can start doing the meal planning on that. And, and I think it's, if you are a DIYer, then this program is not for you. But if you are like someone who just really thrives on having an accountability partner, you like to commit to a date, and do this together as a group. And we're going to have a special online forum that is completely closed only to participants of the program, where you are welcome to ask questions and vent and share. And I think it's a really nice community experience. I don't know about you, but like when it comes to food, like I don't feel like I need support, but when it comes to exercise, I do. And so I generally don't do well on exercise by myself, kind of a thing. But when I know that I'm starting a program and the class is at 3 o'clock today afternoon, the likelihood of me showing up is going to be 10 times higher versus me just putting on a calendar and hoping that nothing more important happens. And a lot of times something more important happens, and then I don't actually do my workout. So yeah. Okay. So Jen, why don't we just take a couple of questions? Could period come back after 3 years of menopause? Yes, it can. Yes, it can. And a lot of people actually, after the COVID vaccinations, have experienced that, in case you haven't heard. And sometimes we go through certain changes, like especially if you're changing your hormones, it might happen. Yes. It's not a bad thing, you know. Should you avoid soy foods? Kim is asking. So it's a good question. During the elimination diet, we avoid soy altogether, just to give your body like a real break. And then you're going to reintroduce it, and your body will tell you whether it is acceptable or not. Soy is a bit oversimplified because there's a lot more nuance to it, right? So the question is it organic soy, or is it soy that's kind of like generic soy that's GMO, right? If it's organic soy, then the question is, how processed is it? Is it something like soy milk that's highly processed and it's got a lot of preservatives in it? Or is it something like an organic tempeh, which is soybeans that have been fermented, which is a much better food? And so, you know, we're going to guide you through all of that during the program. If your body is responding well to soy, then I'll say go for it. Just as long as it's organic, fermented kind of soy, not soy milk, not all this fake meats. That stuff is highly, highly processed, right? And this is the reason why a lot of women, also remember that soy is highly estrogenic. So you've got to also have enough support in your body to be able to break that down, that estrogen, correctly and poop it out, right? So this is where your liver support, your digestive support of phytoestrogens, they're called phytoestrogens, becomes really important. Which blood test to get done to check your estrogen dominance? So we always recommend Dutch, DUTCH, for urine testing. If that's not available, I'm not sure which country you're in. If that's not available for you, the second best is going to be saliva testing. The only thing with saliva testing is not going to show you how the estrogens are get broken out to metabolites, which is, I feel like it's a really important piece to understand. But it's better than nothing. And saliva will also show you progesterone estrogen ratio. So there's some nice things like that. The one type of test that you don't want to do, would waste your time and money on, is blood testing. You know, when I was in private practice, I had a lot of people coming in and saying, you know, I just had the full hormone panel done and my doctor says I'm perfectly fine. And then this is a woman who's saying I have 8 days of periods that are like, I'm flooding. I have fibrocystic breast, right? My mom had breast cancer. And so like she's screaming estrogen dominance in every way, yet blood tests were showing everything is perfect. So just don't waste your time and money. And just, it's not just that, but it's just misinformation. Blood testing is great for blood sugar levels, for your HA1C, for your glucose, insulin, for your thyroid hormones. That's great. Luteinizing hormones, your FSH, that's all great, but not for steroid hormones such as testosterone, cortisol, progesterone, estrogen, DHEA. Those steroid hormones, you want to measure that through urine or through saliva. Okay, what else? How do you know when you have a particle hysterectomy? So I still have my ovaries. I think it's, how do you know when you had it? I think it's partial hysterectomy, so I still have my ovaries. Is that so? Jen, I don't understand. So, so Amy, what is the question here? Maybe if you could just repost this and clarify what the question is. Is estrogen dominance responsible for high cholesterol in perimenopause? Good question. So, estrogen dominance in itself, no, but low estrogen is. So, one of the things that women struggle with in low progesterone, with low estrogen, is that it affects our cardiovascular health, and so cholesterol is one of them. And this is specifically what estrogen does. Low estrogen does is that pulls down your LDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol, and elevates your HDL cholesterol. Remember that in a context of cardiovascular health, you want to look at it from a functional perspective, and it's not just looking at your total cholesterol, because that's a useless number. You want to look at how much HDL cholesterol you have. You want to be in the upper range. You want to look at the LDL cholesterol. Although LDL on its own does not cause heart attacks, what gives cardiovascular issues is triglycerides and your inflammatory markers like your CRP. So that's where is the inflammation combined with high LDL cholesterol that can be causing issues. So triglycerides, a really important thing to also look at. Okay. Are there 3 foods and 3 ribs you'll be talking about today? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Joan, thank you. Joan is like, she's on schedule. I have a schedule for today and I forgot about it. Yes, 3 foods. So that's what happens, you see, when you don't sleep well. So there you go. It's like such a reminder. You guys, we're going to spend some time, during this time, like once you get your food under control, you stock up on the food and we start cooking together and stuff like that. The next thing we're going to be done talking about is like getting you to sleep. I really think that sleep is one of the most underestimated tools. And I know there's a lot of other things you can talk about, like what kind of skincare do you use? What kind of cleaning products do you use in your house? And we will come to all of this as well, because all of those are xenoestrogens, which impact you tremendously in terms of and giving you estrogen dominance. Actually, did you guys know that xenoestrogens are actually synthetic estrogens that show up in the body as estradiol, right? But unfortunately, there is no lab testing that shows the estradiol. Is it coming from endogenous, like your own body production, or is it coming from synthetic products, right, that you're using in a house? But anyway, so sleep is huge, and I'm just rambling on about it because I'm feeling like today is probably, last night was first night in months that I've just had a horrible sleep, and I'm just feeling like, in spite of having like a nice matcha tea that I'm drinking right now and stuff like that, and so I'm significantly caffeinated, my brain is still not very boom, boom like that. Okay. So let's talk about what John reminded me of, and that is 3 foods to help estrogen dominance. So the 3 foods that I would say are huge is, let's talk about groups of foods. The first group will be the cruciferous vegetables, so brassica family, meaning everything to do with your broccoli sprouts. They're huge, full of sulforaphane that help to metabolize estrogen, is humongous. All the radishes, turnips, cauliflower, collard greens, arugula, my favorite, mustard greens, right? That's the group of, the second group of foods will be the allium. The alliums are basically your scallions and onions and garlic, right? They're very high in sulfur, which then helps with liver detoxification. There's something called the sulfation pathway, which is one of the pathways that neutralizes, detoxes you from estrogen, right? And that's the pathway we want to support through foods. I would say the third one would be anything that is bitter. So, things like, for example, dandelion leaves. One of the reasons why we're running this program in spring is that we can encourage you to go to your garden or a park, which is not sprayed with any pesticides, hopefully, and then pick dandelion leaves and then add it to your salad or saute them, and we'll give you some recipe ideas. And, and that's just a wonderful way of bringing better things into your life, right? So those are the 3 big food groups. The 3 big herbs, I would say, for estrogen dominance, as you can probably guess, is things that I would say the first 2 I would name will be there to support your liver tremendously. So the first one will be milk thistle. Milk thistle for 2 reasons. One is that it helps with the detoxification of the liver. It also protects the liver. So, for example, There's a lot of people who are big drinkers. Whenever they drink, they have things like milk thistle prior, an hour, 2 hours before, because it protects the liver. And milk thistle is also slightly phytoestrogenic. What's fascinating about that is that the phytoestrogens are the good types of estrogens. And I'm writing an article about it so that people stop being so freaked out by phytoestrogens. And we get daily emails and questions about this. And please don't think that I'm like sick and tired of hearing this. I'm just realizing how much of a misinformation there is out there, which is really unjust and unfortunate, that phytoestrogens are going to give you estrogen and cancer, or if you had estrogen and cancer, you should not be touching phytoestrogens. And the truth could not be further than that. I'm actually writing an article, and the body of research I'm finding on actually phytoestrogens. So it's a segment of foods or herbs that have slight estrogenic properties. They're actually so protective that on the cellular levels, for example, they come into the cell and protect the cell from the dirty estrogens. Remember, I talked about the dirty estrogens, from causing any further DNA damage. They're actually quite amazing. I'm finding research about phytoestrogens and having protective properties against chemotherapy damage, yet without stopping the chemotherapy. And so now they are doing, pharmaceutical companies are doing research now on how to pair chemotherapy with phytoestrogens so that, the damage from the chemo is not as vast. So it's a fascinating area. And so milk thistle would be my number one herb option. Number two, I would say, something for the liver will probably be, I will choose something like, I think I would choose andrographis, actually. Andrographis, which is in our digestive bitters as well. It was used very often during COVID because of the antiviral properties, but like many herbs, it is one of the most bitter herbs in the world. So it's not something you're gonna like go drop into your mouth, go, oh, yummy. You're probably gonna go, whoa, or put it into take it in a supplement. So andrographis, it has an incredible ability of blocking dirty estrogens. And the third one would be Vitex, cheeseberry, which is a wonderful shrub that grows in the India region. And it also grows in Hawaii, for those of you who maybe are in Hawaii. And it is amazing at just helping you with increasing your progesterone levels. So remember the first two herbs I mentioned, right? Andrographis and milk thistle help you with the breakdown of estrogen, so the type 2 estrogen dominance. Type 1 estrogen dominance can be dealt with two ways. One is increasing progesterone through things like chasteberry. You can also do bioidentical progesterone, like in a form of cream. You can also, the most indirect way would be by upping your vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, to give your body its own, resource to produce its own progesterone. That's only if you have your uterus still. So chasteberry, interestingly, in Jen, it's okay. Let's put on the three herbs. Interestingly, in Germany, full-on allopathic doctors are using chasteberry, Vitex, also known as Vitex, is the same thing, as a way to increase progesterone in women who have fertility problems, women who are coming in with hot flashes, and they're suspected to have low progesterone. So it's pretty fascinating that, and insurance covers that in Germany too, which is pretty fascinating. And I've met doctors in the United States who call themselves functional OBGYNs, and they've never heard of Vitex. So it's pretty interesting. All right, let me see what else have I promised today. Role of genes. So just a quick mention about before we just take more questions. The role of genes is that, put it this way, let me just share with you. So genes can play a role how well or how poorly you metabolize estrogens. And I'm a good example of that. I've inherited genes of both sides of my family. They make me a very, very slow estrogen metabolizer. That explains why both sides of my family, there are a lot of deaths amongst women and uterus removals, and in their 50s, 40s, and 50s because of estrogen dominance. So, not surprisingly, I've always been that girl who had the worst periods, and the girl who will find breast lumps after breast lumps, and and we'll go to whatever, Italy or Spain or Portugal or whatever, and have like a couple of weeks of wine and coffee and gluten here and there, and come back and I'll have like the worst hormonal problems, right? So that's because of that. So hormones do play a role. However, it is a little bit, think of it this way, like you inheriting a gun that's loaded with bullets, right? Something still needs to pull that trigger. And that pulling of the trigger is your lifestyle, it's your poor diet, poor sleep, it's your, whatever inflammation, is the stress, is, toxic products, whatever is your reason, right? So this is my analogy. And, one of the reasons why I got pushed so much into doing this work is because of fear. My biggest fear was that I was going to get breast cancer, and I'm going to be diagnosed, like the one day that lump that I find is going to be breast cancer. And so I decided that, I'm also, for those of you who don't know me, I'm also a life coach. And one of the things that we use in life coaching is to use fear as an amazing energy for transformation, just to push us towards a certain transformation. And that was the thing for me, was that, how can I use my fear to really learn everything that I need to know about how estrogen is metabolized, so I don't become like my aunts. I don't become like that person who is, losing their uterus in their 40s and 50s, right? So that was my why. And so if you have certain genetic predispositions, whether you've got your genes tested or not, I feel like it's not foundational to know that. Like, you should do your Dutch testing and things like that. But when it comes to genetic testing, unless you're dealing with a lot of other stuff, it just kind of confirms. But you probably already know this. For me, it created a lot of forgiveness. Then it's like, I'm not broken. I was just programmed that way, and I just need to put a lot more work, for example, than a person who doesn't have these genetic SNPs, right? So in my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, I talk about those SNPs. CBS, which is the sulfur one, COMT, COMT gene is a big one that codes for enzymes that break down estrogens, right? My COMT is super slow. Yet when I do, my testing for Dutch, my COMT is working okay, just because you can support the COMT gene by doing a lot of B vitamins, by being on a highly anti-inflammatory diet, and so on and so forth. So you're gonna be learning all of that. For those of you, the details of that, we're gonna go through all of that in our estrogen reset program. But it's completely doable. It just takes a little bit more work. Okay. All right. Okay. So Jan, let's pop a few more questions. The dandelion, do you use the flower in salads or just the leaves? Okay, it's a good question. So the leaves, but you can use the flowers as well. And the flower is also great to infuse into oil if you know how to do oil infusions and applying it on your breast. Like if you have fibrocystic breast, painful breast, dandelion flowers are just one of the best ones. But yeah, it's the leaves that typically, and you can cook them as well. I say hormones balance. Please recommend which testing is best to check hormone balances, issues, impairment. So I think I've already talked about that, right? Develop lipodemia due to hormonal imbalance and inflammation. So, actually we have, Jen, maybe we could post that, the testing thing. We partner up with a lab called yourlabwork.com, and we have a bunch of panels, including there is a replay of a webinar I did with a founder that explains what we recommend for testing. So you can see all of them. Dutch test is one of them. But, I always like to test a little bit more than just Dutch, because Dutch is a little bit like, this is the end frontier. There's a lot of things that happen beforehand that leads to hormonal imbalances, such as vitamin deficiencies, inflammation, dysregulation, like your liver markers might be off, right? And so knowing these ahead of time or early in the game and reversing addressing them would actually help your hormones. Because, like, for example, if it just shows you let me give you an example. Let's just say it shows you that you're breaking down the estrogens in a very unfavorable way, right? And in Dutch, and it shows you like, wow, I'm producing a lot of the, a lot of the metabolites that are the dirty estrogens, right? Because you have the 2, 4, and 16, and so you look at the thing and you're like, whoa. And your doctor's like, well, we're gonna do a lot of things, and sure, you can do some supplements and stuff, but I found that the most sustainable change comes from making changes in your diet and lowering inflammation. And so my point is that when you do those labs, like what's your vitamin D levels, your magnesium levels, your liver markers, your inflammatory markers, right? Like the CRP, HSCRP, like, it shows you a lot of things, and you know what to fix to improve your hormones. So you can go to, I think it's Jen has just posted the link to lab testing. And for those of you who are on Instagram, if you can just go to Hormones Balance, our content page, hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com, and look for lab testing. That article should show up. Okay, let's do another question. Heather's saying, I'm 49, I've noticed my legs getting hairier by last few years, which seems odd. Any idea why that may be? No, I actually don't. And I'm not sure if hairier legs are connected to estrogen dominance. I've never heard of that. The hair changes, in other places, like getting hair on your chin here, or, up above the hip, lips and stuff like that, or nipples, etc. Those are changes that is typically due to either PCOS, high testosterone, or because of just going into low estrogen. When we have low estrogen, the body starts producing a lot more testosterone. Be like, hey, because the body is like there's a loop mechanism, right? That says, we are low on estrogen, so let's produce more testosterone to start converting to estrogen, and that additional testosterone is what causes a lot of women who go into menopause and perimenopause to grow hair on their chin. Let me just address one here. So my practitioner says only blood work for hormones, says it's the most accurate. So your practitioner, so it depends which hormones, right? If it's thyroid, that's fine. If insulin, that's fine. Insulin is a hormone too. But if it's for all the other hormones we're talking about, then I'll say your practitioner is not educated, and maybe it's time to move on to another one. Maya is asking, how do you reverse estrogen dominance? Hey Maya, so I've been talking about that for the past 45 minutes. So when we hang up, I will post this video so you can do a replay. And we're also running an online program, 6 weeks, to help you reverse estrogen dominance over the course of 6 weeks, step by step. I have symptoms of estrogen dominance, but weight gain is in stomach and blood sugar issues. How would I handle high testosterone, exercise regularly? So Jennifer Whitman. So the answer is that, so the first thing is, why do you have high blood sugar levels, right? So that's something that needs to be addressed. Is it your diet? Is it stress? Is it inflammation that's causing all of that? So this is some of the things that you need to look at to really address that. When your blood sugar levels drop, and you can also, one thing I will say that is pretty, it was, as you hear, I'm not American, right? From my accent, and I've lived in the United States for 15 years now, but I grew up, I'm Polish by birth, and I grew up in Asia. And so I have a sort of a very worldly background. When I moved to the United States, I've lived in 7 different countries. So when I moved to the United States, one of the biggest shockers for me, how much sugar there was in everything. And I thought, like, wow, this ketchup is so sweet, and the bread has sugar in it, and even Polish kielbasa has sugar in it. I was very offended by that. And, it's just like, what's going on? Like, and the bigger even the bigger shocker was the fact that when I ask people, I'm like, this bread is sweet. Like, this is supposed to be a savory bread. Like, they call it German bread or whatever. And I'm like, it's got sugar in it. And they go, well, I don't taste it, because our, taste buds in the US are so desensitized from sugar because of the amount of sugar we are consuming. So anyway, one of the things, Jennifer, that might be worthwhile for you to do is to do like, she says, my diet is very clean. So I've worked with a lot of people who would say that when I was in private practice. What I would encourage you to do is to go through every single, just for like a few days, go through every single thing you're doing and see how much sugar that's hiding in those things. Because that blood sugar levels has to come from somewhere, right? If there is an issue of, and then you can also do some supportive herbs such as berberine is great. Berberine, in fact, shows the same efficacy as metformin, which is given to people in diabetes and prediabetes. Fenugreek is amazing. Cinnamon is amazing, right? Chromium, picolinate can all help to regulate blood sugar levels. So those are some of the things that is the hidden sugars. Yeah, it's so, one of the things for those of you who are going through the program with us, Estrogen Reset, and if you're joining late, we're starting on the 24th. And tomorrow, the super early bird price is, the special is expiring. So don't wait any longer. Also give yourself time to prepare, But one of the things you will see is that one of the exercises we're going to do is for you to go through every single product in your house and see what is happening in terms of the sugar content. And it was, when I was in private practice, we used to do this kind of exercise, and women will come back and say like, whoa, I did not realize that the green juice from Odwalla or whatever, that I always grab on my way in the supermarket because it's nice and green and it says green super greens and whatever, actually contains like 48 grams of sugar, right? So 48 grams of sugar, you guys, it's like you're going to divide it by 4. That's 11 teaspoons of sugar just at hello, just in one juice, right? And so it can be pretty shocking. A lot of shakes and protein shakes, I know in America, everybody loves to do their protein shakes. And then when I tell people stop doing your shakes, then people go like, where do I get my protein from? And I say, from real protein, such as a piece of chicken or have a dinner leftovers. So there's a lot of sugar that can be hiding there. A lot of times you guys put fruits in there, bananas, pineapples, and whatnot. All of that can really add up pretty quickly. Okay, let's do maybe, is your 6-week program available for people in the UK? Yes, Sarah, it is. And yeah, so it's, and it's, and the shopping list and stuff like that, we made it international enough so that you probably you should be able to get all the ingredients in the UK as well. Let me see. Give me a second, Jen. Let me just look at questions on Instagram just to be fair, because I'm doing it on 2 screens, you guys. I'm doing Facebook this way, Instagram this way. So we make sure that I don't ignore you, which was never been. Anuchiko is asking, do systemic enzymes, like example neprinol, help with fibrocystic tissue in the breast? Yeah, not that I've heard of that. I think systemic enzymes generally can be very helpful in lowering inflammation in the body. But when it comes to breast health, take a look at our store and the product called Happy Sisters. And it's not the enzyme that's going to help. It's going to address, you guys, for those of you who are having fibrocystic breast, benign lumps in your breast, what's going to help your breast is addressing estrogen dominance, which is what causes all the water retention and inflammation there. Swelling of the ducts is your lymphatic stagnation and overall inflammation. So if you want to, support us and get Happy Sisters is one thing. If not, just look at the ingredients and you get an idea of like what works for breast, because we've selected pretty much those. Let me take this question here. Should I be on hormone replacement therapy if I'm in menopause? That's a great question. So, I spent some time talking about that in Estrogen Reset. In fact, there's a whole lecture on that. And, my take on this is that if you are symptomatic, right? Like, I am not opposed to taking hormones. Let me just start off from the beginning. Like, let me just ask you first, like, how early should you start hormones, right? And you see, the thing is that a lot of women who are like entering perimenopause, and like, the first thing they go, I need to get on some hormones, right? Because like I can't sleep, I'm getting hot flashes, I'm like waking up in a puddle of water, I've got all these sweats, and then she goes and seeks right away hormone replacement therapy, right? I think it's okay just to initially manage the symptoms, and especially like brain fog and, and anxiety or whatever, just to kind of like calm the whole body down. It might be a good idea. But my challenge with doing that is that a lot of time we are then not addressing what caused our hormones to go so out of whack so quickly, right? And this is where things can come into play, things like inflammation, poor sleep, poor liver function, right? And so you're taking these hormones, but at the same time, you're not addressing what's causing these issues in the first place. And from my experience, the HRT, and when you say HRT here, I really want to discourage you from doing synthetic hormones, but work with a practitioner who specializes in bioidentical estrogen, progesterone. And it doesn't really matter which ones that here I'm talking about, like even going on a bioidentical hormones right away without addressing all these other, all the other causes of fire in your life, it might end up being that two things can happen. One is that it helps you initially and then it stops working when there's so much inflammation. Or you start developing symptoms or develops into something different, something more serious. So believe it or not, as much as a lot of my practitioner friends will say the bioidentical hormones are completely safe, I don't entirely agree with that. That's part of the reason why we do not sell estrogen in our store, is because estrogen, even in bioidentical form, still needs to be broken down, still gets broken down to clean and dirty estrogens. And if you're breaking that bioidentical hormone into too many dirty estrogens, it can still be problematic. One of the problems is estrogenic cancers. Okay, so I've met enough women at conferences and, just in my daily social circles who say, I was ensured that being on the bioidentical hormones was safe, yet I was found to have breast cancer, right? And it's heartbreaking to hear this because then I talked to her, it's like, has your doctor been running like regular tests? No. Have you been doing anything to support your liver? No. Have you been sleeping well? Not really, right? And so on and so forth. So the question is, if you have cleaned up a lot of things in your life, right? So like doing estrogen reset program, I really want to set you up with a foundation for a clean diet, clean home, clean bathroom, clean kitchen, right? Good quality sleep. So you know that you have all the tools to get your sleep back in a really good place. And if you're feeling like your symptoms are still persisting, then we go to the next level, and look at bioidentical hormones. And the other thing is that's super helpful is to be constantly in touch with your doctor. Be like, even though you're doing all the things right, you might be developing osteopenia. It could be that diet is just not enough, and it's time to get on the bioidentical hormones because to protect your bones, to protect your cognitive decline, to protect your skin, and so on and so forth. So, all right, Jen, let's do one more question, and then we're gonna wrap up. Will your program be good for postmenopausal women with partial hysterectomy? Yes, absolutely. Yes, completely. And one of the big misconceptions, like I said at the beginning of this video, is that we think that just because we are in menopause, we don't have estrogen dominance, and that's very incorrect. So this program is called Estrogen Reset for a reason. I don't call it like estrogen dominance program. It's called Estrogen Reset. So you're resetting the way your body is producing and using and breaking down estrogens. And this program is for women who are still menstruating, women who want to get pregnant. My bigger focus and attention is on perimenopausal women to get you through this time of a life, menopausal women, and most definitely postmenopausal women, because that's when estrogen dominance is highly, I don't like using the word dangerous, but it's highly problematic. It can be problematic. This is the reason why, you guys, women who are in our 50s and 60s and 70s develop breast cancers. So if you think that, the estrogen dominance doesn't happen in menopause, that's incorrect, because those are the women with the highest demographic with breast cancers, right? And so we are here to help you, to really help your body break that estrogen down correctly. Okay, well, I hope, okay, so last question. Will there be new recipes on that one from the book? Yes, they're completely different from the book. I think there's one or two recipes that are same, but everything else, those are new recipes. Yeah. Hey, you guys, thank you so much for being here today. And I hope some of you join us for our Estrogen Reset program starting on the 24th. Tomorrow, this super early bird is expiring. So take advantage of that if you want to get our travel kit and the pads and $50 off. And we're also giving, Jen, is it $20 or $30 towards our store, a credit coupon? Let me just take a quick look. It's $30 towards our store. So really by paying $147, you're actually paying more like $117. So pretty inexpensive investment for 6 weeks of support. So anyway, have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye for now.